When I was 8, my grandfather taught me a completely useless fact. We were sitting by a pond, throwing breadcrumbs to ducks, when he pointed at a dragonfly skimming the water. Did you know, he said, that dragonflies can't fly properly when they're cold? Early in the morning, they just sit around warming up. I remember rolling my eyes. I wanted pirate stories and buried treasure, not insect trivia. But he made me repeat it anyway. Dragonflies get sluggish when they're cold. For the next 20 years, that fact sat in my brain doing absolutely nothing. Then, when I was 32, it saved my life. I was hiking alone in the Scottish Highlands when a thick fog rolled in. What had been a clear afternoon became a wall of gray. My phone had no signal, my map was soaked, and after a few wrong turns, I realized I had no idea where I was. As evening approached, panic started to creep in. I wandered for another hour before spotting a small loch through the mist. The water stretched away into the gloom, giving me at least one reliable landmark. I decided to spend the night nearby and wait for daylight. The temperature dropped sharply. I barely slept. Just after dawn, I stood up, stiff and freezing, trying to figure out which direction would lead back to the trail. The fog was still everywhere. The landscape looked identical in every direction. Then I noticed dozens of dragonflies clinging to reeds along the water's edge. And suddenly I remembered my grandfather. Dragonflies get sluggish when they're cold. They needed the morning sun to warm themselves before they could fly. I looked around. Most of the insects were facing the same direction, their bodies angled toward a faint bright patch hidden behind the fog. It was the only clue to where the sun was rising. The fog blocked the sky, but the dragonflies didn't care. They had already positioned themselves to catch the first warmth. So I followed their lead. Keeping the light on my right, I walked south along the shore. After an hour, the fog began to thin. Soon I spotted a fence line, then a farm track, and finally a road. The road led to a village. The villagers later told me I had been heading away from a steep ravine. Had I continued in the direction I'd planned the night before, I might have walked straight into it. That evening, safe in a warm pub, I raised a glass to my grandfather. All because an old man had once insisted that dragonflies are bad at flying when they're cold. For 24 years, it had been the most useless thing I knew. For one morning, it was the most important.